Well, chapter 129 of the Bungou Stray Dogs manga came out recently, and to all the people that were saying Fyodor is smarter than Dazai, yeah, you were wrong. Well, I just wanted to get that off my chest. So, for a while, Fyodor seemed to have had the upper hand. Many people gave up on Dazai, but after rewatching Bungou Stray Dogs like 4 times, reading the manga and the light novels, I knew my boy still had a card up his sleeve. Now, this video is going to be split into 3 parts. The first part is a detailed explanation on why Dazai is smarter than Fyodor. The second part will be talking about why it was obvious from the very beginning that Dazai would beat Fyodor, and merging that with the third part, we'll be discussing how intricately layered Bungou Stray Dogs is, and hopefully at the end of this video, you'll get to see why Bungou Stray Dogs might just be the best written anime out there. But before we begin, let's bring out today's sponsor, myself. I'm sure all of you that clicked on this video saw my thumbnail. I'm a digital artist who specializes in high-quality 4K resolution anime illustrations, and I illustrated the thumbnail for this video, along with many different illustrations ranging from mobile to PC wallpapers, headshots and full-body characters. You can check out my art on my website or on my Instagram page. I'm currently aiming for 500 followers. Both of the links are in my description. I'm also open to affordable commissions. You would not be disappointed. Alright, that's been the sponsor of this video. Now for the main content. Oh, yeah, do note that this video contains a lot of spoilers, just so you know, so yeah. Well, time to get started. As mentioned earlier, a lot of people were under the impression that Fyodor was smarter than Dazai. But for those of us that were on Dazai's side, it seemed to feel like cope to keep saying Dazai still had a plan. Well, that was until chapter 129 came out. And even then, people still believed Fyodor was smarter than Dazai. He wasn't, and I'm gonna prove it. So, the first time we see Dazai and Fyodor interact, after the Dead Apple movie, Dazai deduced Fyodor's plan about taking out the Port Mafia and detective agency bosses, and using the book, which is a special book that allows you warp reality to how you see fit. Well, that's not exactly how it works, but we'll discuss that later. And Fyodor was going to use it to eliminate ability users because he believed abilities were evil. And Dazai deduced all this from pure metacognition. He deduced what he would do if he was Fyodor and predicted Fyodor's plan. No outside information, no leaks, just pure intuition. Later on, we see that Fyodor had already started setting up his plan 14 years ago and purposefully got himself arrested to manipulate the entire planet from the background. Now, Fyodor had been in prison for over 4 months already before his pawn Fukuchi, whom he manipulated to carry out his bidding, rewrote reality to make the world see the detective agency as villains. But before this, Dazai had already predicted that this was going to happen and purposefully got himself arrested too so he could fight Fyodor on equal ground. Next, Fyodor had already sent his minion to kill Francis so that the detective agency would not be able to use the Eyes of God, which is basically a super advanced satellite tracker. So, Fyodor knew the exact second Francis was going to die, but he'd been in prison for over 7 months, so that means Fyodor had given the instruction to kill Francis prior to the arrest, and counted down from the time of his arrest to the exact second of the exact day of the exact month. And then, Dazai predicted that Fyodor was going to assassinate Francis at the exact time, and created a backdoor to prevent Francis from dying. Mind you, Dazai has no intel on this, he's just using himself as a case study to predict Fyodor's moves. In the race to find out who would get the One Order first, the One Order being a special ability device capable of controlling a person's subordinates, Fukuchi, which is Fyodor's pawn, made sure to set 12 planes coming through 12 different airports at the same time to throw the detective agency off, since the device was coming in from Europe. But of course, our smartest character, Rampo, deduced which plane held the device. So, Fyodor predicted that Rampo would deduce which of the planes held the One Order, and made sure the pilots died mid-flight, so the Fukuchi would get the device before them. But Dazai deduced that Fyodor predicted that Rampo would deduce the correct plane and would kill them, so he made sure the One Order was sealed by a special ability that cannot be disabled by physical force. Damn, that was fun to say. Next, in the prison, each door requires a 12-digit password, and Dazai not only guessed the password, he also knew Fyodor predicted all the passwords too, predicted the exact password Fyodor had predicted, and changed the password to something Fyodor wouldn't guess, thereby causing Fyodor to get a fatal injury on his hand, which served as a distraction. Dazai also outsmarted Fyodor by getting Chuya to play the part of a vampire. And to those saying Fyodor knew Chuya was a vampire, he quite literally did it. Chuya was the only one who could trick Fyodor as a vampire in the scenario because he not only despises Dazai, but he's also naturally aggressive, and Dazai also dislikes him and would have no problem trying to kill him. Speaking of, that brings me to my next point. Dazai was able to pull a move that was never even conceived by Fyodor. the moment Dazai almost killed Fyodor. Dazai had baited Fyodor and Chuya into a room and attempted to drown them. It was the ideal trap because not only was the water abnormally heavy, but Chuya couldn't use his gravity because increasing gravity underwater is nothing but suicide. Granted, this was all a ploy for Dazai's ultimate plan to be carried out, it still had Fyodor stressed for a minute, as this was never in his foresight. Also makes me wonder why Fyodor made the statement. And lastly, Fyodor genuinely believed that Dazai had no chance of even stopping him at the end, but soon came to realize that all had gone according to plan. As I said earlier, Fyodor had already started enacting his plan 14 years ago, which means he already started playing chess with the world, and Dazai only came in halfway through the game and gave Fyodor a really tough time. Now, granted, Fyodor being killed by the vampires was part of his plan, and he did outsmart Dazai in that regard, but that doesn't mean he was smarter than Dazai. Let me explain. Fyodor's ability had been hidden from the very beginning. He made sure that no one ever witnessed his ability for hundreds of years. As such, it was impossible for anyone to actually know what his ability was. Now, had Dazai been aware of Fyodor's ability, things would have gone completely different, as they did in chapter 129. We'll get into that. So, Fyodor used Dazai's lack of information to his advantage. Since Dazai assumed his ability required touch, all his plans by default will have to be roundabout and much more difficult to enact. And thus, logically, the only way to kill him will be to use someone who can launch an attack from halfway across the world. And the only one capable of that is Bram. Now, that makes you wonder, why would Fyodor make it a point to ensure Dazai couldn't operate at full capacity for fear of his ability? Mind you, Fyodor did this so as to add to Dazai's overwhelming disadvantage. While Fyodor is so intoxicated by his own sense of justice that he gives no qualms about who has to be sacrificed to achieve his goal, Dazai on the other hand had to formulate a plan to kill Fyodor without endangering anyone's life besides Chuya's of course, predict all of Fyodor's moves, which he did, and somehow prevent every single member of the detective agency, the executives of the port mafia, the special ops division, and the head of the guild, Francis, from dying while having extremely little information, being in a prison cell and formulating a plan on the go as more information came in. And finally, the last evidence that Dazai is smarter. What do you think happened after Dazai figured out Fyodor's ability? Exactly, he killed him. Dazai, in a prison halfway across the world, figured out how to kill Fyodor and give a means for Fukuchi to atone for his sins at the same time. Mind you, Dazai was nowhere in the vicinity. The last information he had was from Ango after Fyodor drove off to an unknown location, and Dazai predicted exactly the instant Fyodor would attempt to use his ability again and took out Fukuchi and Fyodor at the same time. And after all this, that one Fyodor minion will still say Fyodor is smarter, so why did Fyodor lose after Dazai deduced his plan? Fyodor's only win against Dazai. Now, mind you, Fyodor had already foreseen everything that would happen after taking over Bram's body. He would obviously know Dazai would have figured out his ability soon after he faked his death. He predicted and planned for every action the detective agency, the port mafia, special ops, and even Verlaine, Chuya's brother, were going to take. Well, with the exception of Atsushi surpassing his expectations twice, but even at that, he planned for a situation like that happening beforehand. Literally stated that Fyodor never makes gambles and always takes the course that will surely guarantee him victory. And in spite of predicting how everything will go down, Dazai with just the information about Fyodor's ability and a status update from Ango devised the plan that surpassed Fyodor's perfectly scripted plan and killed Fyodor. If all this doesn't tell you Dazai is smarter, then I don't know man, you might just be coping at this point. Now let's move on to the second part of this video, which is why it was obvious from the very beginning that Dazai was smarter than Fyodor and that he would beat Fyodor. Now this section is guaranteed to make you start seeing just how well written this show is. Also, quick note, if you've only watched the anime and read the manga, some information I'm going to put out is gonna be foreign, so take notes. Now, how was it obvious that Dazai would beat Fyodor? Let's time travel. In season 2, Dazai purposefully made sure Atsushi would be on Moby Dick, when everybody besides Francis, the guildmaster and the owner of the Moby Dick ability, would have abandoned ship. Oh yeah, Moby Dick is basically a special ability giant whale that flies and literally has an entire HQ inside it. Yeah. So Dazai also leaked information to Hiroto to give it to Kikuchi so she would tell Akutagawa so that Akutagawa would infiltrate the Moby Dick and work together with Atsushi. At the end of episode 12, Dazai states he did this because he wanted to test their teamwork and prepare them for the battle against the great evil, that being Fyodor. So long before Fyodor made his move in season 3, Dazai had already deduced that Atsushi and Akutagawa teaming up will be able to take him down. In season 5, Dazai revealed that he took Akutagawa in and trained him all for the sole purpose of him teaming up with Atsushi to take on Fyodor in the future. meaning Dazai had already started hatching a plan that would end Fyodor when he was 15. This checks out because in the Dead Apple movie it revealed that Shibusawa, Dazai and Fyodor all knew about Atsushi since he was a child in the orphanage. Atsushi is only about 4 years younger than Dazai, which means that at the time Atsushi was a child, Dazai would have been a teenager, so that checks out. Also, Dazai seemed to just coincidentally have been waiting in the woods for Akutagawa to come chasing after some thugs who murdered his friends. Yeah, that wasn't a coincidence. He was very particular about choosing his students. Another evidence is he knew Natsumi Sensei as a teenager, and even regarded him as his sensei, and he also had an abnormal knowledge about the book, which is the most secret of the top secret information there is. Next, in the Beast light novel, Dazai confirms this, as he manipulated the detective agency and the port mafia to ensure that 4.5 years later, Atsushi and Akutagawa would end up working together. He states this was necessary because their abilities was the only thing that could defeat Fyodor. Since Beast Dazai commits suicide afterwards, for a reason I wouldn't stay in this video. Now, the light novels are canon, and in the Beast light novel, Beast Dazai has interacted with our anime Dazai and read his memories. But the book hasn't been in Dazai's possession since he appeared on screen. That means Dazai had interacted with the book in the past, which would explain why he knows so much about the book, and about Atsushi. He also states that he's interacted with Fyodor in the past when talking to Hirotsu, which will solidify how Beast Dazai got to know about Fyodor. And finally, after Fyodor's escape from prison, Atsushi and Akutagawa's teamwork surpassed his expectations twice, and led to his ultimate demise against Dazai. The first was when Atsushi slashed the monster ability that was transporting Fyodor out of the vicinity, even though it was too high up for anyone to tell which one had Fyodor. And the second was when Atsushi slashed his fusion with the monstrous remnants of Amanogosa. Now, there are some people that would argue that all this was coincidence and Dazai didn't put them there as a contingency in case he failed to beat Fyodor, so let's rewind. In season 5, Dazai sends Akutagawa to follow and protect Atsushi, and because of that, Akutagawa was always present where Atsushi was, even as a vampire. Secondly, after Dazai deduces Fyodor's plan and figures out his ability, Dazai breaks into a cold sweat with an unnerving smile and just suddenly decides to do nothing? In a situation like this, Dazai would start formulating a plan and communicating to the others on a new course of action, but he just chose to not do anything throughout the incident of Fyodor's return. He didn't guide Atsushi, Akutagawa, Mori, or even the special ops, as anger quite evidently shows that all the plans to beat Fyodor at that point were independent of Dazai's inputs. It was just everyone acting on their own judgment. And finally, in the chapter Fyodor dies, we see Dazai just sitting there in the prison, unworried. This undoubtedly solidifies without a doubt that Dazai knew that Atsushi and Akutagawa were going to be able to handle Fyodor long enough for him to defeat him. If you've made it this far, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks. And finally, we talk about other Easter eggs in the show that show just how much of a beast of a writer Asagiri truly is, and how everything is connected. First, let's start off with what Bungou Stray Dogs is really about. If you only watched season 1, you'd assume it was about Atsushi's adventure in the detective agency, but things start falling apart from there, because soon after, everyone seems like the main character. Or rather, the story stops seeming like it was propelled by Atsushi's actions, but rather like Atsushi was selected among a group of people to be the face of the show, while being thrust into a world that honestly seems like he doesn't contribute much to. Another take could be that it's about the book, but the book was only really brought up from season 3. The previous 24 episodes plus the OVA and the movie already had plot before the introduction of the book. What if I told you both are true? Bungou Stray Dogs is actually entirely about Atsushi. And no, I don't mean it's about Atsushi's journey throughout the show. I mean Bungou Stray Dogs is literally about Atsushi's existence. Unlike every other show that's about the main character's journey, like Dragon Ball being about Goku's growth as a martial artist, Attack on Titan being about Eren's pursuit of freedom and liberation of his people, Naruto being about Naruto's journey to becoming Hokage, Bungou Stray Dogs is nothing like that. Atsushi's journey isn't what drives the plot, it's his existence specifically. Stray Dogs cannot exist without Atsushi, as Atsushi is the bookmark of the book itself, as stated by Fyodor more than once. First, he makes a correlation that because Atsushi is the bookmark, his claws are incredible. And the second one, which perplexed me, after Fyodor was temporarily defeated by Atsushi and Akutagawa, Atsushi asked Fyodor why he did what he did. Was he acting this way because of the suffering he endured in his past, or did he have a heart? After this, Fyodor laughs and states that he's relieved that Atsushi is truly the bookmark and still stuck on. Yeah, things are getting crazy, right? Let's look at what a bookmark is. So from this, we see that a bookmark is something that marks a specific place in the book. It allows the story to continue from a specific point. It's basically a tool that anchors a book. Think of Atsushi as a fixed point in the structure of the narrative. This solidifies the fact that Atsushi's existence is the plot, and leads me to believe that he might just exist as an anchor, stabilizing reality, a being that exists outside the rules of reality of the book itself, something that stops the world from collapsing. The explanations are endless. But for the part that shook me, Fyodor said he's still stuck in his place. Could that mean that he's still fulfilling the role expected by Fyodor? It makes me believe that Atsushi might be a part of a much larger system than we've been led on. And it's so cool how this has steadily been set up from the beginning. Way back in season 1 episode 2, when Dazai recommended Atsushi to the detective agency boss, he asked the boss, suppose the most gifted person in the world appeared before you, would you hire him? Suggesting there was something special about Atsushi himself. Then in season 3 episode 13, we are told that Atsushi's claws can cut through the very fabric of any reality. This is shown when Atsushi broke through Akutagawa's devoured space way back in season 1. Another perplexing thing about Atsushi happened in the Dead Apple movie. Shibusawa has the ability to separate a user from their own ability, and have said ability attack its own user. Yet when Atsushi's ability was separated from him in the form of a crystal, Atsushi was still able to transform into a tiger, which shouldn't be possible. And to dig the hole deeper, only his ability was extracted as a blue crystal and remained that way, twice. Every other ability that was extracted turned red. Shibusawa also called it the light that opposes all abilities. Shibusawa also goes as far as calling it the supreme ability. What's even crazier is that the second time Atsushi's ability was extracted, he could still force the crystallized ability to resist Shibusawa without actually possessing it anymore. This also explains why Fyodor was so obsessed with Atsushi's ability from the get-go. It's crazy just how far and in-depth Atsushi has been foreshadowed as the core component of the book. Another crazy thing is that Atsushi is the only person shown to be capable of viewing the entirety of the past and future intersecting at once. The personification of the director of the orphanage in Atsushi's mind remarks that Atsushi has knowledge of how the fourth-dimensional plane works, even though Atsushi himself seemingly had no idea about anything in that space. Within that space, Atsushi also had the ability to go to any point in time of anyone and view the events. And once again, Atsushi's ability was shown to transcend all, as his claws were able to cut open that space, and striking his claws at a point was strong enough to send him back in time. But in order to understand Atsushi fully, we need to understand who, or rather, what Fyodor is. Back in season 2 episode 8, Atsushi told Dazai of a line from a book he read as a kid. It went, and after Fyodor was temporarily captured by Atsushi Nakajima, he states, how did he know that? This was after the remark he made on Atsushi still being stuck on. Even Dazai after killing him asks what Fyodor is, not who, but what. It's quite crazy how Fyodor knows so much about the book, and especially about Atsushi. Hopefully in the next chapter we get a full backstory of Fyodor. I just love how well the Bungou Stray Dogs story is drafted by so many components seemingly unrelated. The story seems mysterious in many ways up until the big reveal, where you realize the answer to the mystery has been foreshadowed and revealed in throwaway scenes from past seasons, or discussions from the light novels. Nothing was accidental. Oh yes, before I forget, let me explain how the book really works. Now, if you haven't read the light novels, you might not know this. It was revealed in the Beast light novel that when you write on the book, that doesn't actually create a new reality. There are already infinite realities with infinite possibilities that exist within the book. And once you write anything on the book, it brings forth a possible world that already existed within itself that mirrors what was written on the book. And finally, to close off the third part of this video, let's talk on the other part that's extremely so well written, besides the mysteries and the foreshadowings. Yes, I'm talking about the characters and their relationships within the show. For starters, it's quite amazing and intriguing that the characters are named after real-life writers, and even some of their relationships. Much like the real-life author, Dazai is suicidal and desperately tries to find a reason to live, but unlike in real life, his relationship with Akutagawa is the complete opposite. In real life, Dazai Osamu looked up to Akutagawa, but in the anime, Akutagawa desperately tries to gain Dazai's approval. The same can be seen with Rampo and Poe. In real life, Edogawa Rampo deeply admired and was heavily inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's detective and mystery style, so much so that he gave himself Edogawa Rampo, which is just a Japanese rendering of Edgar Allan Poe. Whereas in the anime, Poe is the one that is deeply inspired by Rampo. Another thing I like is how depression and the reason to live are handled in the series. Everyone here has experienced depression and some still are, But every single person has their own version of depression, which is unique to only them. Dazai lacks true empathy and has no real connection to anyone, and struggles with finding his purpose. Atsushi's depression stems from his terrible childhood, growing up in a world that tortured him to near death every single day for 18 years and reminded him that he has no worth. Rampo's depression stems from his superhuman intelligence, which resulted in his alienation as a child. Also, he has an inferiority complex due to the fact that he believes that without his intelligence, he has no worth. Hence why he has such a superiority complex about his genius. It's a coping mechanism to convince himself that he's an equal to those around him. Yosono's depression stems from her ability to heal people from near death. On paper this sounds cool, but as a child she was forced to heal soldiers in a one-sided war to keep fighting over and over again. She healed the soldiers an absurd number of times, so much so that they started craving death but could not die, and sought to kill her so they could die. And the closest person to her committed suicide because her ability, which was supposed to be a blessing, became a curse to them. Honestly, there's a lot I could say about their individual characters, but I think I should wrap it up here. Bungou Stray Dogs is such a well-written anime, the most well-written anime I've ever seen. And yes, I've seen Attack on Titan. Bungou Stray Dogs' beauty is in its subtle foreshadowings, mysteries, and characterization. It's one of those shows where the more you watch, the more things you realize. Like the main reason Dazai took Atsushi in was because Oda, his best friend, asked him to take care of orphans. Even after finishing all the seasons of Bungou Stray Dogs, go back and rewatch and I assure you, you're gonna see something that you missed along the way. Well, that has been all for this video. Check out my other videos. Well, God bless.